This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Want to pull off the season's freshest trends? You just need the right shoes. That's where Designer Shoe Warehouse comes in. Loving wide-leg jeans? Pair them with sleek, low-profile sneakers. Obsessed with the sheer trend? Try it with mesh flats. Feeling boho? Comfy sandals nail the whole free-spirited thing. Find on-trend shoes from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at DSW.
Let your imagination take flight with an AI-powered PC from Lenovo. Whether it's creating digital art, designing new software, or building a portfolio for a future career, our PCs are powered by Intel Core Ultra processors to help students unlock smarter learning and unleash their creativity. That's the power of Lenovo with Intel inside. All you have to do is choose the one that fits your passion. Head to Lenovo.com to shop AI PCs and find your perfect companion. Plus, get 5% off when you create an education account.
You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com, ODOO.com.
Nordo in for PA, final hour. The host is back on Monday. Joining me now, covers the Twins for The Athletic, theathletic.com. Follow him at Dan Hayes, MLB via X. Dan Hayes joins me now. How you doing, Dan? Buxton, what a sight to see, right?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Nordo? How are you doing, man? Buck is on a roll, and it's we know when we see these times, we've seen them a lot over the last 6 or 7 seasons where he just goes otherworldly, and you appreciate them when they're happening because you don't know how long the shelf life is, obviously with his history of injuries. But man, when he gets going, there's few guys that are as good as him. And it's unfortunate that the Twins only won one of the 3 in Cincy, but Tuesday night we saw exactly what he does with the robbing Will Benson, and then in the bottom of the inning, or the next top half of the inning, hitting a home run to the exact same spot. He's a dynamic player, and there are few with his skill set that are as good of a hitter as he is.
Following you as I do, and keeping up to date with your work on The Athletic, you kind of put out a piece this morning, and kind of the title of it, Byron Buxton proves worthy of all-star votes. And you offered other Twins nuggets as part of that, and it's kind of funny where, just framing it up, teams on the grind in the Central, teams on the grind in the wild card race at this point. Tigers seem unflappable. You get it, and people are hurt trying to figure out the hip with Ober, etc. But in the same vein, what you are watching from Byron right now is what you've begged for a long time, and you're getting it on a day-to-day basis. And so it's almost you're fighting instinct in some ways, where it is like, okay, there is some malaise going on, but you truly are seeing a masterpiece every day with this cat on the field and at the plate, and just kind of trying to put that in perspective, all-star level stuff from Byron.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, look, it is coming across against the backdrop of a down stretch here. On June, when they left Sacramento 2 weeks ago, they were 6 above 500.
Yeah.
And that was after a blowout loss, but they had just lost Pablo Lopez. And so we knew there was going to be some difficulties ahead. And then Debbie Matthews went down a couple days later, and suddenly this rotation that had been the strength of your team, a group that was 5th in ERA in baseball, 4th in WAR as of June 4th, was missing 2/5 and really missing Pablo Lopez having a Cy Young caliber season. And so it's been a rough stretch, and Byron's continued to shine. And we've seen everybody else kind of struggle consistently. Carlos Correa has been struggling. You look, Matt Wallner had an 0 for 20. Royce Lewis, before he got hot and then got hurt again, was very, had a couple of rough a couple of rough weeks. And Byron, through it all, he was maybe a little slow early in April, but he's been outstanding ever since. And when you look up right now and you see, where the team has played 74 games, they're 37-37. So we're not even at the halfway point. He's got 15 homers and 45 RBIs. Those are, eye-popping numbers for Byron Buxton. To be on pace for above 30 homers and maybe 100 RBIs, it kind of illustrates how dominant he has been this year when he's been out there. And the one absence was the concussion, and that was a freak incident where he and Correa, made contact. But
yeah,
this is a guy that 2 years ago had 2 back-to-back season-ending knee surgeries. And they were never sure that knee was going to be healthy again. I remember when the second one happened, I think the part that they fixed was called the plica, and they suggested it would remove pressure that bugged him that whole season. And they were hopeful, but there was no promises. And he looks pretty healthy. And I am sure that there is a ton of maintenance going on behind the scenes to keep him in this position. That's what the smart guys do. They work tirelessly for hours before the game to get ready. But we're seeing what that kind of looks like when he is feeling good and also has matured at the plate, and it is a sight to kind of see.
So with Paddock, the Paddock experience, it feels kind of like hold on to your butts, and he gets out alive, and overall he's a battler. There's no doubt. Does he get through 5 yesterday if he doesn't have 9 runs behind him?
Yeah, he does. I think
okay.
So. His stuff was. He said he was fighting his stuff all day. He said that was one of the tougher days. I don't know how much the mound plays into it at that park. I would suggest that years of Great American Ballpark being extremely hitter-friendly would probably make me think that the fact that a couple of guys mentioned it's one of the flatter mounds in baseball, and that's something to adjust to. I think Bailey Ober talked about it, having to reset his sights because his changeup was in a different location than he expected it to be. And Paddock mentioned the flatter mound yesterday. So I don't know if that played into it, but his stuff was not as crisp. And he got I think he retired 9 of the last 10. He gave up the 2-run homer to Lux to make it I think that was when it was a 2-run shot, and it made it 4 runs after, 2+ innings essentially. And it did look shaky, but he came through and really clutched up there, and they needed it. And for him to get 5, in a day where it's not optimal, the Cleveland or the Houston one, he got hit pretty hard. So we need to see him rebound to the previous place he was, because they absolutely need him being a good pitcher with Lopez and Zebby down, and with Festa and Simeon Woods Richardson in the mix. So it'll be interesting to see how he rebounds, but he continues to feel good, and that's where the Twins really need him to be.
Dan, the way that I see things, I can either get caught up in too much nuance and I'm deep thinking to the point of paralysis by analysis, or I just speak in absolutes. And in this particular case with the Twins, when I'm looking at this thing, I'm thinking no help's coming. The St. Paul Shuffle, the Green Line, there's no help coming from the Saints at this particular juncture. Would you agree with that? Is it truly ultimately on the back of we're going to need more from Paddock? We absolutely need Joe Ryan to do his thing tonight. We need what we saw from Jeffers yesterday with the 4 ribbies. We need Correa and his 3 hits. We're getting Willie Castro on a daily basis. Keep getting walks. Keep getting on base. Can I speak in absolutes that no help is coming? That it is truly all on the backs of what we're seeing right now from our starting 9?
Look, I don't know as far as the starting 9. Look, I think that there's still a chance that they will try to add something at the deadline on the hitting side. I've heard enough to think they actually are looking for a left-handed outfield bat in the corner.
Okay.
And that would allow, it would allow them to, even though they have Wallner and Larnach already in place, it would allow them to DH one of those guys. And when they're looking for right-handed heavy, Rocco loves to play matchups, and the roster hasn't allowed him to really do that this year. There haven't been the guys that they thought they were going to have to sub in, and I think they're still looking for one more left-handed bat. But beyond that, I don't think they're going to really look for pitching help. It's possible they do, but they like the group they have. I think there's some optimism that Bailey Ober has turned that corner, and I talked to multiple people about that yesterday, just to see what they thought, because it looked different in the second half of this start, and it was still a tight game. There's a 4-2 game. Cincinnati's not just given in because they got the 4 early runs, and Ober just generated weak contact the whole second half of this start. He got a lot of swing and miss. He ended up with 5 strikeouts, no walks, which, given he had walked 6 in his previous start, that's a good sign for him to turn it around that way. He thought, and he really felt like, even when he gave up the runs early, he was hitting his spots. The pitch to Spencer Steer that Steer hit out opposite way, that's apparently, I don't have the heat map, but that's apparently exactly where you want to throw it. Spencer Steer struggles with up and away, and Over was on the outside edge, threw a fastball, and Steer apparently doesn't hit those. He did there. They felt good, and I know Pete Mackey felt the same way, and a few of their front office guys, that he hit his spots with more frequency, and then once he started getting some results, they really poured in, and he got all that weak contact, and so that would be huge for them. They need him to not just be a 5-inning guy. They need him to be going 6 innings.
Yeah.
And consistently. We know what Bailey Ober looks like. It's not flashy, but when Bailey Ober is going as well as he can, he's like 6 innings, 2 runs, or 7 innings, 3 runs, and he's always in the game, getting a lot of swings and misses, not giving up free passes, and very rarely does he ever look like he's getting hit hard, and that obviously went away this last 3 starts. So it was an encouraging sign, and it makes less, when he's off, there's less room for error for Festa and Simeon Woods Richardson, which is going to put you in a tough spot because they're inconsistent, they're young, they're going to take their lumps. That's just how it goes. So, yeah, I do think you're right. I think, speaking in absolutes, it will need to be from this roster. They do believe Pablo Lopez will be back later this year. I do think they believe Luke Keeschel will be back later this year. Keeschel closer than Lopez, but they're going to have to perform, the group they have. They went in with a pretty well-rounded roster. I know fans will say they didn't spend a lot in free agency, but they did spend at the end. And you look at the 3 guys they added between Bader, Coulombe, and France, they added some pretty solid pieces to the roster. So I think this is largely what we'll see from this group the rest of the way. You're going to need Matt Wallner to hit more than 207. You're going to need Correa to be the guy he was in May and not the guy he's been in June and April. And Jeffers definitely is another guy that needs to step up a little bit more. He's got a good OPS, but the run production yesterday was huge, and they need some of that once in a while.
Hey, let me ask you a stupid question. So brace yourself. Dan Hayes, The Athletic, covers the Minnesota Twins. You see what Buxton's doing right now, and he hits a couple of home runs. No one's on base. So completely Rube question here. Do you consider, if this trend continues, of moving him out of that 1 spot, pushing him down a bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Because he's so dynamic in the 1 spot.
He is.
And so you just wonder, because like you said, the 2 home runs yesterday, the one the day before, all solo shots. And it would be better if there were runners in scoring position. And he has done well with that because obviously he has 15 homers and 45 RBIs. And there have been some years in the past where he has like 16 homers and 31 RBIs. So he's found a way to get some run production in key spots this year. So, I don't think that's a problem. I think he's in such a good place that he would be capable of handling it. It's just who then takes over the spot. And I'm glad I don't have to answer that question as far as my job's not on the line, trying to figure out who would hit leadoff if it's not Buxton. But they definitely, it's interesting. And again, I think he's in such a good spot mentally right now. We asked him about why there's been so many walks and fewer strikeouts. And since he's come back from the concussion, he's had 72 plate appearances. He's walked 9 times. He's struck out 12. So 1 out of every 6, he's striking out. It's a pretty good ratio for him. He's a guy who usually strikes out about 28% for his career, and to be 16% is a great spot. He said it's just he's keeping the game simple. And what that tells me is he knows what pitches he can do damage on. He is knowing how opponents are going to attack him. He is laying off the pitches he doesn't want to go after, and he is just trusting that he is going to get the ones he wants. And man, when you have a 5.55 slug for the season, I think he has a pretty good idea of how to do this, because when he is getting those pitches, he is doing damage. That means doubles, that means triples, that means homers, and the Twins are benefiting for sure.
You were talking about Buxton's run production, and this was totally my fault, but you joined, I think it was a week ago Thursday, so 8 days ago. And I think I asked you as part of that, we were kind of marveling at the greatness of Aaron Judge. And he had just hit like that 500-foot just absolute shot against the Royals. Well, how about the Yankees? I mean, clearly different circumstances and situations. Not all 6-game losing streaks are created equal. But ever since you and I talked about him, and I'm kind of fawning over Aaron Judge, and I don't really understand this new bat some of them are using, but whatever. It was a 500-foot home run. He's been an absolute L, my man. He's had 3 hits in his last 8 games, only 1 home run. You want to talk about the 12 strikeouts in the last 72 plate appearances. He has like 13 or 14 strikeouts in his last 20-some plate appearances. Aaron Judge has been a disaster. They lost 6 straight, just got off the schneid yesterday against the Halos, but even the Yankees are struggling.
Nordo, if I recall correctly, this was, you asked about Judge because Alec Lewis suggested bringing it up.
That's right, yes.
I think this is the Alec Lewis jinx that we've just discovered. Aaron Judge is down because Alec asked about him. So we'll just keep that on the record there. But it's just baseball. I mean, the Yankees getting shut out 3 straight times.
Wow.
And losing to the Angels. How many people in Vegas did not do well or online anywhere did not do well with those 3 games. It just happens, man. It's a funny sport where you can just be in a rut. Look, Carlos Correa came into Wednesday. Sorry, I got my days mixed up here, but came into Wednesday's game with 1 walk in June. This is a guy that walks 10% for his career. He's a guy who tells younger teammates walks get you paid, make sure to take them occasionally. And he had only had 1 in June. So we went and talked to him on Wednesday before the game, and he said, he'd been having trouble checking up. His mechanics were making it harder for him to have check swings on bad pitches when he wanted to swing. And all of it was connected, and that he felt like he was getting there. There was some work being done. And he followed that night. He walked twice, just immediately walked twice. Follows yesterday, walked again, and in the process, he's 3 for 6 too, and looks just like himself again. He is at a spot where he's hitting the ball hard. He's hitting it to right hard. He's hitting it to left hard. He's pulling it. He could look completely lost 3 days ago, and then all of a sudden, I wouldn't want to face him with a critical spot tonight or this weekend. So, especially if it's as warm as it's looking like it's going to be for the next couple of days at Target Field. So it's just a weird sport where the best in the world can look hapless. and then a few days later, one thing clicks, and then all of a sudden Aaron Judge is hitting 475-foot home runs again.
Good opportunity tonight for Joe Ryan to handle the Brew Crew, and Brew Crew kind of they're in a lot of teams. It's our own vacuum, right? Twins baseball, Twins fandom, but a lot of teams are having their ups and downs and middling related struggles. The Brewers are not unique in this regard. Neither are the Twins. opportunity potentially if Festa does not fester and begin festering on Sunday, and we get something out of Woods Richardson. We have an opportunity to take a series here. We got Detroit. You're in Motown next weekend. I mean, it's ugly in terms of the near time looking at the AL Central. But whether it's this weekend against the Brew Crew, I'm excited as of now. It lines up. We're going to get to see Scooble a week from Sunday. Like, good times, fun times ahead for the baseball team.
It is, and it's a good time for them to get hot. And it's funny, you go 1-5 on this road trip, but they saw those signs that they needed. Like I said, Ober, I think that was a huge end of his start.
Yeah,
Wallner was talking about it, and Wallner was in a weird 0 for 20 funk, where Wallner usually said, like, when he has a big spell, and we've seen it, he'll strike out a ton. I think there was a 0 for 25 or maybe a 3 for 25 to start the season a couple of years ago where he struck out 17 times. And I talked to him briefly about it after the game yesterday. I was like, was that a look of relief on your face when you doubled? And he's like, yeah. And he was emphatic about it because he said, look, this stretch was worse for me than any others because I wasn't striking out a ton. He struck out 7 of the 20 times. He's a 33% strikeout rate guy for his career, so 35% isn't alarming. He was still seeing the ball. He had 6 hard hit balls in there. I think there were 6 that were 103 miles an hour or more, 6 with expected averages like 315 and above. So he was making some good contact. And, Wednesday night he lined out to second base, and it was a rocket. And all 3 of us in the press box went, whoa. And then it was the immediate whoa because it got caught too. I mean, he was feeling a little bit like he had some serious bad luck going on. And he walked yesterday to end the 0 for 20, and then he doubled. And so he comes out of that series feeling good. Jeffers has to come out of that feeling good 2 days after the hand injury to have 4 RBIs, but not just RBIs. His 2-run double with 2 outs in the 3rd inning was so key. I mean, it made it a 7-2 game, and I feel like, Brooks Lee had just had a tough at-bat before that where he struck out on a terrible pitch, and the Twins are about to blow a chance at breaking the game open, and Jeffers doubled and delivered. They need those kind of minutes. They need big hits in big moments to, build a little confidence and get going the right direction. And they hadn't had it in Houston, where they lost a couple of really competitive 1-run games. They hadn't had it in the first 2 in Cincy, where they lost winnable games, although the rain took out that chance on Wednesday. So it was a good end to the trip. Now they just have to carry it over at home. And they've been really good at home this year. So between Milwaukee and Seattle and Detroit, it's a tough stretch coming up. But I think they're at least in the right frame of mind to be successful, whereas a few days ago, who knows?
What do you think about is the press box going to be windows closed, AC up this weekend? I mean, Gleeman's got the neck fan and stuff like that, but it's going to be hot this weekend, Dan. You got to stay cool.
We'll see. I'm actually going to not be there till Sunday, so I will be staying cool elsewhere.
Good call.
I imagine the windows may be closed. Maybe not tonight. Who knows? Gleeman, the neck fan is going to be very helpful. We don't try to close the windows when it's hot. It needs to be boiling hot for us to close the windows. You got to take advantage, regardless how awful it is. You got to take advantage because there's so much of the year where it's just you can't open the windows and it's crap. And so, look, just stay hydrated.
There you go. I love it. And I love the work you do, and I always appreciate your willingness to join, man. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work, and we'll catch up again soon. All right, Dan?
Thanks, man. Take it easy.
All right, thank you. That's Dan Hayes, covers the Minnesota Twins for The Athletic, theathletic.com. Follow him on X, read his work at Dan Hayes MLB. Dan Hayes MLB on X. Couple segments to go. A Friday feast. It's Nordo in for PA. Brett Blakemore with me. It's the Fan.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hey, it's Nordo in for PA, 9 to noon. Thank you for listening to The Fan. You know, it's kind of cool. We're located here in St. Louis Park. And it's always good to get a kind of a dose of reality. We have fun. We are the sports-centric show of the Fan family. Awesome show by the Power Trip up in Duluth this morning. Super cool crowd in the mix. Ton of support for the morning show, guys. Love hearing that. The Grum will follow us, and ultimately a mix of the toy department and some A-section newsiness that comes from bumper to bumper. But it's good. You know, working radio, there's some mental elements of it, of course, that exist. But in the end, I'm not working in the coal mine. Okay? So if I have calluses on my fingers, it's because I'm a mediocre guitar and bass player. It's not from toiling on a day-to-day basis. But sometimes maybe, you know, a guest will cancel and you kind of got to grind or whatnot. And this is completely non-sports, off-topic related, but I'm looking out the window of our studio. And these guys, they were putting up a few days ago, now they're taking down like this heavy commercial aluminum scaffolding. And it looks like they work for a specific scaffolding that's what they do. That's their thing. And it's good to have perspective once in a while. When I'm annoyed if a guest cancels or something falls through or something doesn't go my way, and oh my goodness, at some point the mic's got to come on and I have to say something. And, you know, I'll let the listeners have their opinions on what they ultimately hear. But then I'm looking, these guys are working their asses off out there. I'm sitting here in a climate-controlled studio talking about sports, and it sounds like we might have some wild news here that we'll eventually get to. But cheers to those guys. Cheers to the guys that are out in the trades right now on the freaking grind. I'm talking of, you know, Dan closed the windows in the press box at Target Field. It's going to be a hot one out there. I mentioned Gleeman's neck fan. When these guys are taking down scaffolding, they got a vest on, they got jeans, they got boots, they got hard hats. No neck fans. And they're working their tail off. Now, the Busch Lights are probably going to taste good around 4:30 today. Tip of the cap to that as well. Work hard, play hard. You've earned it, gentlemen. Cheers to everybody that's actually grinding today. So that came to mind because like a bird, I saw something shiny outside and I was just absolutely fascinated by it. And in this case, it happened to be people doing actual work. I'm not in the coal mines. I get to talk about sports and it's fun. And we are super blessed as a fan staff that you, the listener, support us in the way that you do. And thank you for supporting us in other ways. Speaking of support, scaffolding company right outside next door doing actual work on a Friday. Hope they're staying hydrated out there. Random thought aside, moving on, back to sports. Back to the A topic. Minnesota Wild fans, we are your home for Wild hockey. And it's going to be a fun week next week. PA back in the mix. Guest list is being assembled as we speak, but, you know, just kind of referencing it, right? Watching the NBA Finals and a little bit thematic in both of them as our teams are out, other teams are in, hoisting trophies and a chance on Sunday for either OKC or Indiana to hoist their own in the Larry O'Brien. Depth, right? Depth. So the draft next week, Billy G, let's make it happen. But then, of course, free agency is going to take place 1st of July. Similarly with the Wolves, draft next week. And I don't believe free agency begins in earnest until, let's just call it like July 6th or 7th. It's that week after the holiday. But as of June 30th, teams can start. It's their legal tampering period, effectively. You can start negotiating deals. The Shams bombs will be flying. And we'll be following closely with John Krasinski and Dane Moore and everybody who covers the Wolves to see what our favorite team's doing. But on the Wild front, we had Russo on yesterday, and he had mentioned that there might be some news coming down in relation to Iowa in particular. So I'm going to lean on you, Brett, to tell me. I saw this. This is from an hour ago from Russo at Russo Hockey. Hearing Wild are closing in on hiring former Anaheim Ducks head coach Greg Cronin as their new coach with the Iowa Wild. Cronin has coached collegiately and in the AHL, NHL for more than 35 years. Points percentage of .625 in 3 of 5 years recently with the Colorado Eagles. Playoffs in all 4. It goes, one canceled for COVID. Oof, COVID. 5 years since that. How about that? Time flies when in some ways you're not having fun, but you're definitely happy to be beyond it. So Greg Cronin is now potentially joining, per Russo, hearing that it may be happening. Greg Cronin joining the mix. What do we know about Greg, and are we pumped for this Iowa Wild squad here?
Yeah, typically with the NHL and the coaching carousel, it's a lot of once you're in the fraternity, you're in, right? And if you get fired and you're terrible, well, you have the NHL experience, so you'll go. And sometimes I feel like I want to be like Daenerys and break the wheel and try something new when it comes to NHL coaching. But when it comes to AHL coaching and developing guys, I mean, that I'm more willing to hear if you've got the experience and you've got the cred. And yeah, it wasn't a good couple years in Anaheim for him. Yeah. I'm not sure anyone could have won Anaheim with some of the teams that they had and put on a really good year. So again, he's got really good experience as far as the AHL. Like Russo mentioned his tweet, making the playoffs, 4 out of the 5 years with the Colorado Eagles. But It's more of the development. I mean, he's an assistant for the Islanders, an assistant for the Leafs, assistant for the Islanders a second time. So he's been there, done that on every level of the game. And that, to me, is a guy that I would want in Iowa developing our young guys, because they're going to be essentially a whole new team down there with a lot of guys coming from juniors and stuff. Okay,
everybody duck, because there's probably a dumb question coming. But in fairness, you're always prepared for that when you're listening. It's Nordo for PA 9 to noon. So I've seen this, and it's something. It's like blog fodder or social media fodder in some ways. And I'm not discrediting this at all. But there's this guy that writes for The Athletic, Scott Wheeler, I believe is his name. And I think maybe he's even been on Beyond the Pond, but he does a ton of a deep dive analysis, AHL level development stuff. What do the prospect pools look like for the Minnesota Wild? And last couple of years, he's just been hot on our favorite team. And what's happening down in Iowa in terms of the prospects, it's unbelievable. And it was like third in the NHL, second, maybe higher, maybe the best. And I don't have his most recent rankings, or at least his most recent analysis. But this has been a common thing per Scott, and he's probably not the only one talking about this, that the future could be very bright for the Minnesota Wild. However, the Iowa Wild, actually the last couple of years, have mostly been dreadful down there in Iowa. So I'm having a hard time reconciling the two and putting that together here, where the Iowa Wild may have among the best prospects in the NHL, but the team itself, hideous. So how do I put that together mentally, Brett?
Well, a lot of the prospect pool isn't in Iowa right now, and they will be this coming year. Talking about, I think Riley Height. Now I'm saying this, and now could be wrong. So, grand salt. I want to say, I'm just covering my bases. I want to say he went back to juniors again, but maybe he didn't. But there's a lot of guys where it seems like this will be the year where Iowa will hopefully take a step forward.
Okay.
And a lot of the guys, I'm trying to frantically look up the prospect rankings for Wheeler, but can't anyways while I'm chit-chatting.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. I think this is a year where they actually take, because you look at Wallstedt, right? And this is a guy who we expect to take a step forward and hopefully play up here.
I believe it's Wallstedt, but that's fine.
Wallstedt, you know what I mean. You hope that
I'm just intentionally being a jerk to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's fine. We hope that he takes a step forward, but the season last year in Iowa was dreadful, and how much of that is his doing and how much of that is the team in front of him's doing. And I personally lean into the latter.
Well, and does it hurt him at all? Ultimately, like he came up, I think he made his debut last December, maybe? Was that when he came up and he was here for a stretch? Does that sound right, somewhere in that area?
He had a cup of coffee a couple times. There was one time where...
But it didn't go well. I think he had 4 or 5 dropped on him one night.
Well, yeah, it was on the road off a back-to-back in Dallas. And they threw him out there.
That's not a great spot.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with that one. Because there was another game.
Well, they probably thought they had to.
Well, that's fine. But I think the game before that was like at home against like Columbus or something like that. Like a layup game that they could have played him then and then played whoever else was in net at the time. The next game for the more difficult game. They didn't. And he got... not embarrassed, but he got a lot of pucks went in the net. It wasn't his net that night.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I think you're onto something. And again, it appears the question is dumb. I got this text. Over the last 2 years, there's been so many injuries. There's always been players from Iowa playing here. I know at one point last year, the entire fourth line was Iowa Wild players.
Wow, that's true.
There are no layups. Whether it's Columbus, whether it's Dallas, that's hockey, Brett. But congratulations if congratulations are indeed in order. When Russo usually reports these things, like 99.9999999% of the time, it's true. So Greg Cronin, welcome to the Iowa Wild. High-end prospect pool. Maybe if we're healthier in St. Paul, we'll be stronger and more consistent in Iowa. But ultimately, it sounds like from a talent standpoint, the future could be very bright with our favorite hockey team. So, hey, a little news on a Friday for you. Final segment is next.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
And with that final segment, 9 to noon on a Friday, I do want to apologize to some of the texters. What's going on with PA, vocal maintenance days? I must clear the air. He has not actually been detained by ICE. So that was it was in jest. Maybe it was in poor taste. So I apologize for misleading the listeners who texted in. They want to know where the host is. And it's this time of year. There's going to be some vocal maintenance days in play. He's in all week next week. As we gear ourselves up, I know that the Minnesota Timberwolves have pick 17 and pick 31. And that's on the NBA side of things. And it's got to be, where are we at from a draft standpoint with Billy's squad right now, Brett?
I mean, they traded their first round pick for Juracek.
So it's going to be kind of a yawner of a night.
Yeah.
Is there I guess I'm peppering you with these questions here back into the show, and I apologize. Juracek's in, right? Like that's not a thing. The way that we talk about Urov, he's not going down to Iowa. He won't be part of Mr. Cronin's operation, but Juracek's certainly in the mix, right? Because he younger and kind of struggling to find his pace and find his way with the squad this last year. But he's absolutely in this fall, isn't he?
He should be. Okay, he should get a legit chance. That doesn't mean that he will. And they could they may decide that Zach Bogosian or John Merrill is the answer to all of our problems, and he needs more time to season in the AHL, even though you traded a first round pick for him. Yeah. And more that I'm not remembering. Okay. So it's
John Merrill, you say?
Yeah, to me, you've got to play Juracek and give him a legit chance.
I think you're right on that. Absolutely love the draft time of the year. So PA is going to be back in the mix. Then it's holiday time, barbecue-related conversation, lighting off fireworks. And once you get on the backside of that, it's the countdown to training camp. PA emailed me yesterday. He thinks State Fair shirts. Maybe we'll do this. To use Brett's terminology, this could be like an abyss bit. because State Fair time comes around and promotions department just inundates us with emails. Actually, they send us like 2 emails, and they send it like 4 months before the State Fair and give us proper amount of time to come up with ideas for State Fair T-shirts.
Good save.
All of us completely ignore them, and then ultimately come up with 2 awful ones like a week before the fair. Maybe in a BIS bid next week, what would a 9 to noon State Fair T-shirt look like? I'll leave that with you over the weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me the last few days, Brett.
Of course.
And thank you for listening to 9 to noon. PA back in the spot on Monday morning. We'll rise and shine at 9, as the host shall say. But have a great afternoon, awesome weekend. Stay cool. The Grum is next. This is The Fan. See ya.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Hi, I'm Danielle Fishel from Pod Meets World. So for my 2 boys, I got Samsung Galaxy Watch for Kids. And I'm not saying I'm kind of jealous of my kids' tech. I'm saying I am definitely jealous of my child's tech. This thing lets them call, text, and explore all from their wrist. No smartphone required. And don't worry, you're still the boss. You control who they can talk to, and yes, you can totally stalk their location in real time. Get Galaxy Watch 7 on T-Mobile, now kid-ready with a new paired line. Visit T-Mobile.com to order yours today. Parent and child must have a Samsung account and Google account with Family Link. Requires initial pairing with a compatible Samsung smartphone and qualifying wireless plan with LTE service activated. Please check with your carrier for more information. Trusted contact applies to compatible apps. It does not restrict communication through third-party or other communication apps. Emergency services and contacts remain accessible. Location sharing is dependent on network connectivity and device being recently active. T-Mobile terms via 24 monthly bill credits when you add a qualifying paired watch line. See additional offer terms on T-Mobile.com.
With depression, it feels like every day you're just going through the motions. I wanted something that could help me feel better fast and that also lasts. That's when my doctor told me about Auvelity.
In a study, Auvelity started working for some as early as 1 week, with significant improvements seen on average at 6 weeks compared to placebo.
Auvelity is helping me to feel more like myself. I'm glad I talked to my doctor about Auvelity.
Auvelity is a prescription medicine for adults with major depressive disorder, MDD. Auvelity is not approved for children under 18. Auvelity may increase suicidal thoughts and actions in young adults. Tell your doctor about sudden changes to mood, thoughts, or behavior. Do not take Auvelity if you have a history of seizure, eating disorder, or have abruptly stopped drinking alcohol or taking benzodiazepines, barbiturates, or anti-seizure medicine. Serious allergic reactions can occur. Do not take if you are allergic to dextromethorphan, bupropion, or any of the ingredients in Auvelity. Do not take with MAOIs. High blood pressure, manic episodes, serious eye problems, and dizziness can occur. Report all medicines you take to avoid a life-threatening condition. Do not take Auvelity if you are or may become pregnant. Side effects can include dizziness, headache, diarrhea, feeling sleepy, dry mouth, sexual function problems, and excessive sweating.
Ask your healthcare provider if Auvelity is right for you. Visit Auvelity.com. That's AUVELITY.com. Or call 866-496-2976 for more information.